Hi, welcome back to Spirit Lounge. Hope you guys are doing really well. Welcome to the next installment of the Nag Hammadi Scriptures. So today, pardon my nose, I've got a little bit of a tickly nose. I've got some allergies today, so excuse me for any interruptions that might cause. So today is going through the excerpt from the Perfect Discourse. There's not a lot in this one actually, so it's mainly going to be me reading this. It really refers to ancient Egypt. It's a passage that refers to ancient Egypt and the invasion of it, and its removal from its position and its re-emergence into a more spiritual place, I suppose, back in the times of Egypt. So there's not a lot that I could extract from it. So let's see what you guys get from this. It may be different to my interpretation. Okay, so let's jump straight into this. Okay. So it's basically a link between Alexandrian and Egyptian literature and the civilizations, and it talks about the misfortune of Egypt, as I've mentioned, and the many invaders and slaughters of the time. Then the judgment of the soul and its journey into the underworld through the pharaohs, pharaotic literature. It's about a Hermetic system in a spiritual way. So the latter part of it does talk about the journey of the soul as it pertains to the story of ancient Egypt and the progress towards source itself and the ascent through the strata of the universe, which is an interesting part of the passage, and we'll go through that. Okay, so let's go through this. This is the prayer they, the teacher disciple from the chapter of the 8th, offered. So we thank you, every soul. The heart reaches out to you. I think this was from the nature of the mystery. So let me just check that one. I think that was from, bear with me a moment. Just want to make sure that this is the, yes, okay. As I thought. Ignore that first passage because that was actually from the prayer to Thanksgiving. So let's just move on to this one. So the first passage is this one, and let's get that back into full screen. Okay, the first is the nature of the mystery. If you wish to see the nature of this mystery, which is the mystery in this case is the divine truth. The mystery is always the understanding of source itself, the mystery of the unknown, the mystery of the esoteric, the mystery of the occult, the mystery of the passage of our souls, the origin of our spirit. This is the mystery. Consider the marvelous image of sexual intercourse between male and female. Now, a lot of this had sexual references to how source or God in these passages refers to the creation process. They used a lot of this terminology and language I've found in those times. They used a lot of sexual intercourse and this kind of discourse to describe the formation of form, the formation of spirit energy, the formation of anything really. And I suppose it's the nature of those times. I particularly don't like that. But you guys can, you just have to read it through and just remember the time it comes from. Consider the marvelous image of sexual intercourse between male and female. Male reaches his climax. That moment the female received the strength of the male. Male the strength of the female. The mystery of intercourse is performed in secret. Two genders may not be embarrassed in front of many. So that the two genders may not be embarrassed in the front of many. Each contributes to procreation, each in the presence of those who do not understand, laughable and unbelievable, the holy mysteries of words and deeds, which are religions, things said and done, heard nor seen. So it's got very loose connotations to talking about really the references towards how the universe is manifest through the male and female divine elements or vibrations or frequencies of source itself performing acts of procreation, therefore manifesting. This is how we can interpret this. Otherwise, would just be reading it in its physical sense. Okay, knowledge leads to learning. For this reason, such ignorant people are blasphemers, godless and impious. Not many different from this, godly are few. Why there is wickedness, learning about what is right is nowhere. Knowledge of what is right is truly healing for the passions of material existence. Learning comes from knowledge, but here is ignorance, no learning in the soul of a person. Incurable passions persist, more evil comes with the passions. Sore gnawns at the soul, produces worms from the evil sore. God does not cause these things. God has sent knowledge and learning to people. This was an excellent passage. Let's go through this again. So, this is talking about, remember, Egypt, where Egypt was fallen through many invaders, bringing in the many sordid acts of death and slaughter and rape and everything else, and pillaging of Egypt through many invasions. But it's talking. Let's look at this from a spiritual perspective. So learning about what is right is nowhere. Knowledge of what is true is having passions. So knowledge of what is right is truly healing for the passions of material existence. What this really means for us from a spiritual perspective, from the journey that we're pursuing, going through this book, is that the greater your frequency, the more it's raised through your learning and knowledge through the internal self, the more that you'll move away, not necessarily physically, but within your internal leanings from the material aspects of the body, the mind, the lustful aspects of the loins, those three things, and you'll move away from those material aspects into the more spiritual, esoteric, vibrational frequency aspects of self, and pursuing those expansive elements. Learning does come from knowledge. Knowledge is that which is unleashed from within you. This is divine knowledge. This is ancient wisdom. This is the book, the energetic book we've described many times. This opens up to you as you open up to yourself, through the eye from within, and from within to the eye from within, to the great all from the without. But here is ignorance, no learning in the soul of a person. More evil comes with the passions. Yeah, of course. So the more material we are, the more attachment we have to the worship and the adornment of the body and the passions of the body, the intellectual ego of the mind, which causes more blindness, I can assure you, and also the lustful pursuits of the loins. This is what causes the sores that gnaw at the soul, and produces more. If we don't do anything about it, it just manifests, and the energy of that just manifests further and further and further into more what we would call depravity and other darker forms of expression. And God does not cause these things, absolutely. I had this discussion with someone very dear, and it's not something people like to hear, that God does not cause these things. God has sent knowledge and learning to people. This is absolutely true. When it's sent knowledge and learning to people, that is inspiring us through the teachings of whichever avatar you find of value, be that Krishna, Buddha, the Christ consciousness, Jesus, whatever, whoever. The teachings were asking us to look at ourselves, the challenges in the mirror, as we've said many times. God does not cause these things. Neither does it come to heal these things. Neither does it come to resolve the problems of humanity. Our problems are our own. We created them ourselves. We are responsible and accountable for resolving those problems. There is no God that's coming to save us. It merely looks and observes. The all is always in us, and it's just merely seeking for us to come back to it through ourselves. And that journey of passage will lead us to all manner of behaviors and experiences, and more manifested creation of duality. But it's for us to go through that passage and become our second coming, like we've talked about many times. And I'll show you that out in this universe, as we, man, look to dominate and crush other nations so we can dominate them, as many countries do. And what is going on today looks like there's a pursuit to dominate all of global humanity under some central force. out in this universe, there are highly likely much more advanced beings who don't look to suppress just mere countries, look to suppress planets and systems under their own oppression. That has been going on for the dawn of the time of all existence. The divine hasn't come to save that. So why would it come for us to save us? It doesn't. He seeks everything above and everything below to return to it. This is an uncomfortable truth, I'm afraid, that we all must accept, or at least ponder upon, because this is the truth. There is no changing that, I'm afraid. This will either come to realization for many or not, that the change of ourselves, the challenge in the mirror, and returning to that vibrational divine frequency is our challenge. And if we all do that, everything in our collective experience as beings, in whatever form, avatar we take, will be a divine one, which is where it actually started that way. It never began that way. It's not that way now, but it's actually began that way. Okay, the nature of the mystery. So these are the conversations between two people, and I'll try not to mess these names up. Trismegistus has said as a question: has God sent knowledge and learning to people alone? Yes, Asclepius, God has sent these things. Tell you why God has granted knowledge and learning. I shall tell you why God has granted knowledge and learning as a share of his goodness. Listen, God the Father and Lord created humanity after the gods, took humanity from the material, give matter a place equal in spirit. There are passions in it that flow over a person's body. Living thing can only exist if it exists, eats this food. Inevitable that inappropriate desires are there, they cause harm within such a person. Gods have come into being out of pure matter. Immortality serves as their knowledge. God has perfected learning and knowledge by man's learning. Retrained passions and vices brought human mortality into immortality. God has created a twofold nature, humanity immortal and mortal. This is quite a complex passage. There's a lot of it. Let's see. So he took humanity from material. Well, this is going back to the story of humanity being created by the forces of the material realm. So the forces of the universe, the elements of the universe, the body, the physical vessel is a reflection of the elements that exist in the universe, that exist on earth. So he gave matter a place equal in spirit. So in other words, what this means is the divine body isn't divine, isn't of spirit. The breath of the spirit was injected into the body to animate it as the I of each of us. Therefore, it then becomes equal. Matter becomes equal in spirit. There are passions in it, of course. These are our desire-driven material aspects of us. So God has come into being out of pure matter. That means it's our spiritual breath that exists within us that comes into being from pure matter. Pure matter is the body, is the realm of that we experience. Immortality serves as their knowledge. That's true. So as we uncover divine wisdom, open that energetic book, immortality is the discovery of our divinity. It's the discovery of the grace within, and that our challenge is to reconnect with it, therefore giving us our immortality whilst in a mortal body. And God has perfected learning and knowledge, of course, through the Spirit. By man's learning, we retrain our passions and vices. That's what we mentioned that before. As we increase our vibration and frequencies, those passions and vices become lesser, and the vibrational frequencies elevate and increase. And then therefore we bring human mortality into immortality, which means we discover our divine selves. We move ourselves from the attachment to the mortal self to the immortal self, which is the discovery of the I. There we go. Then twofold nature is the human and the spiritual. Of course, in the other aspects of the book, we have the physical, we have the psychical, and we have the spiritual. Okay, let's move on. People surpass gods. It turned out this way because of the will of God, that people should be better than gods. Gods are immortal, but only people are both mortal and immortal. They know about each other. Gods knows the concerns of the people, and people know the concerns of gods. I am talking about people who have attained learning and knowledge. People who lack these things, we should not say anything bad. We are divine. Going into sacred subjects, the communication between gods and people. Understand what people can do. The Father, the Lord of the universe, creates gods, so too people create gods. Trismegistus, I agree what has been said. To me, people are blessed because they have enjoyed this great power. This is referring to much of what we've already talked about, which is people create gods. We do. We look around us, we create many, many, many avatars, many symbols, many physical structures all over the world, many points within the world, physical things that various cultures around the world worship. We create avatars as aspects of the divine, to symbolize aspects of the divine. Hinduism has many aspects. We create symbols that we worship. We create figures that we worship. We sometimes create other gods from mythology and ancient philosophy as gods and worship them too. So we've created many, many, many aspects of the one, because there is just the one. And this is what it's referring to as people also create gods. We create many aspects of the one. It's when we understand that we don't need any object to dedicate our devotion to, because that has to come. It's looking for us to get it from here. So that's why we move away from that. Let's move on to that, because this covers a lot of what we've already talked about. Okay, images and their capabilities. There are a lot of slides here, by the way, so I'm trying to move through those. Asclepius, what is greater? The generation of gods has come into being out of pure matter. What people fashion is only an image of the gods. They, humans, are the lowest part of matter, and what they fashion are external images. They fashion heads of gods, other body parts in their own image. As God has wished the inner person be created to be like God. Inner person is the spirit. So earthly people create gods in their own image. If you look at all our gods, they all have 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, nose, mouth, the same human form in their own image. Trismegistus, you are not talking about idols. You are not talking about idols? Asclepius, you are the one talking about idols. You do not believe this discourse. You talk about things that have soul and breath and great accomplishments. You call them idols. Again, I think this is talking about our the inner person to be created like God. That is the spirit within. We do create idols. I think this is referring to the idols of God, but also we create gods in some ways as expressions of our inner selves. So we look at our inner selves, we understand there's a divinity there, but rather than concentrating on that inside of ourselves, we then create an idol. We then create an expression of it in an idol or a form or a block or some physical object, to which then we put our spiritual devotion to, which is what this is talking about. The apocalypse will be despised. Asclepius, now that Egypt is the image of heaven, so this is referring again back to Egypt, which is this entire chapter is really about. Dwelling places of heaven,
To tell the truth, our land is the temple. We should know that a time has come when it will seem the Egyptians have served the divine in vain. Holy worship will be despised. The divine will depart from Egypt. It will be abandoned by the gods. Foreigners will come. These are the invaders. We will be prohibited from worshipping God. Serving God will face the most severe punishment. The country that was more godly than any other country, more of old Egypt. So it just goes on and continues talking about Egypt back before and during, before and then during when the first invaders would come. A lot of this chapter is like this, actually. The Egyptian will perish. They will not leave Egypt. Gods have left the land of Egypt. This is talking about mythological gods, remember. The Egyptians had many, many idols, many, many different gods that they carved, some having heads of animals and so forth. So this is talking about the many gods. The many gods they're talking about and you referring to in these passages we read are the idols, are the figures that they created in those times, and there were many, many, many aspects of them. Egypt will be deserted by the gods. Dead bodies will be piled higher than the dams. Dead will not be mourned as much as the living, like foreigners. Divine Egypt will suffer even worse evils. Egypt, the lover of God, will become the picture of impiety. Okay, the world will be desolate. On that day, the world will no longer be admired. We cannot say that it is either good or beautiful, but it it runs the risk of becoming a burden to all people. So the world will be despised. World of God, virtue in action, vision of many forms, abundance that does not hold back. People will prefer darkness to light and death to life. People would prefer darkness to light and death to life. A lot of humanity have actually gone this way, unfortunately. Through fear and anxiety, they've actually chosen, many are choosing aspects and passages and paths that are not leading them to light, it's leading them to a darkness that they are not intending to see or to embark into. But this is happening today. It's a challenge of humanity globally for everybody. Godly will be considered mad. Impious will be honoured as wise, coward and strong. Concerning the soul, things of the soul has to do with immortality. Absolutely, things of the soul, the spirit is immortal. Rest of what I have explained to you, these things will not only be considered ridiculous as being nothing. People like this will expose themselves to the ultimate danger to their souls. A new law will be established. Good spirits will depart. Wicked angels will remain among people. Lead them recklessly into what is evil. In those days the earth will be unstable. The word of God will become silent. The world, godlessness and dishonor. This has happened to the humanity for the large part. So if you look at the last three sentences there, last three lines almost, people like this will expose themselves as ultimate danger to their soul. So those who go into the material and towards the darkness will leave their spiritual selves behind, which humanity has largely done. The word of source, even the existence of grace, even speak of it is demonized as lunacy these days because people worship mind, science, technology. That's what they worship. And then behind that is the crudeness of the lust to their own bodies and other bodies, and the driver of their lives being from what hangs between their legs, or what is between their legs. So this is what this is talking about. This has largely occurred over millennia, really, slowly. A new law will be established. Good spirits will depart. That's right, the good spirits, what does that mean? That means people will lose any connection with anything greater than themselves and actually dismiss its mere existence, which has happened root and branch in humanity today. Even those who perform virtuous self-righteous ritual, even some who go to church, are just going to church but don't understand what they're going to church for. It will lead them recklessly into what is evil. In those days, the earth will be unstable. That is the case today. We are unstable. Not planetary, it's humanity is unstable. And the word of God will become silent. It absolutely has become mute, I believe. From what I perceive, it's becoming mute, and I am blessed and privileged to have those who listen to this, because it tells me that the word of source, or that mess, or that stimulus within you is guiding you to watch things like this and read scriptures like the Nag Hammadi and other texts to help you grow in wisdom and knowledge. So the world will not be desolate in the future, and is becoming less so, much less so now. Okay, end of the apocalypse. God restores the universe. Asclepius, when all this has happened, Lord, Father and God, has seen what has happened, he formulates his plan against the chaos and eradicates error, eliminates evil, drowning it in a flood. So this is talking about the great flood, burning it in a conflagration, subduing it in wars and plagues, which we've been doing for more centuries than we can imagine. This is the birth of the world, restoration of the nature of the pious. Good will take place in a period of time without a beginning. God has no beginning, which is his will. His will is the good. The world is good. Trismegistus, does intention correspond to will? Yes. I like this one. Does intention correspond to will? Absolutely does. Our free will is open to everything, but it's driven by intention. Actions, words, thoughts, and intentions. Karma is driven by your intention. It's the source of karma. It doesn't matter who performs the act. It doesn't matter what you've stimulated. You don't have to stab someone. If you've manipulated a person to do the act for you on your behalf as a manipulation, then you hold the karma as much as the person who executes it. Intention is karmic. So whatever you intend, whether you perform the act or not, through another, is the same for you. So this is absolutely true. Intention does correspond to will. Yes, since will is included in deliberation, absolutely. God does not will what comes from deficiency. God is filled everywhere. God has everything good. He wills, he wills. God has everything. A good world is an image of the good. Is the world good? He asks. It is good. God bestows. The world produces what is good from matter. Changes in climate, ripening the fruit. God rules over the heights of heaven, everywhere, and sees everywhere. Heaven or stars or anything. So the takeaway for me is that we can create good out of matter, or we can create darkness out of matter. It really comes from intention, and intention drives our free will, and it drives our actions, words, and thoughts, which all come from intention, and that creates karma. It creates outcomes, which are tendencies, timelines. It creates patterns of behavior, which are tendencies, and we create them over and over and over again through incarnated lives, which is what keeps us coming and attached to this physical realm, in a nutshell. Okay, the masters of the earth rule in an Egyptian city to the west. The creator rules in the place between heaven and earth. He is called Zeus. So this is another avatar. Some say Zeus was a off-planet being, actually. But this was an avatar, a being of the time, which means life. Lord over earth and sea. Possesses the sustenance of all mortal living creatures. Forces are always powerful around the earth. Other forces are always from the one who is. The masters of the earth will withdraw and establish themselves in a city that is in a corner of Egypt. Death is a disillusion of the labors of the body and the number of the body. So it's basically talking about when we die, it's a dissolution of the labors. The labors of the body are also the passage towards death. Death completes the number of the body. Body dies when it cannot support the person. Absolutely true. Or rather, the body dies when the spirit leaves the body, because the body no longer supports the intention of the life. Remember, it's the spirit that leaves the body, and that's when the body dies. Or we can, through not looking after the vessel, bring a very untimely early demise for ourselves. If we're not healthy, and we're not looking after this body, we're not looking after the mind, it can deteriorate rapidly, and therefore bring a more rapid end to a life where it was your intention, from a spiritual sense, was to live a longer one and perform a much more purposeful journey. But that won't be achieved if you don't look after the body itself. It's not to worship this. It's to understand this is what supports the intention. It's part of the Trinity of, the spirit, heart, the mind, and the body is the shaft, which is part of the Trinity. It's the fourth aspect of the Trinity, even though it sounds like an oxymoron. This is what it is. The great demon judges human souls. There is a great demon that the Supreme God has appointed as overseer or judge of human souls. I'm not sure this is true, by the way, because we go where our vibration allows us. Whatever vibration frequency from a spiritual sense that we've achieved is the state of the repeated incarnational life and those which we will have those lives with. It's like the saying, if I know you, we shall meet again. And this is great meaning in that incarnational life. And that means that if you're in vibrational frequency with another group of similar frequencies, you'll likely have a life passage with those frequencies. This is a repeating pattern, and the point is to increase your vibration in frequency to then to have life passages with other beings that have higher frequency, so that you can move on through the frequency or the strata of the universe, as this calls it. So I'm not sure there's a judge of human souls. That judge is really the level of frequency that you've achieved yourself. Okay. When a soul comes from a body, it must meet this demon. The demon will turn this person around and examine him with regard to the character he developed during this lifetime. This is all metaphorical for me. The character you developed over this lifetime is the frequency and vibration of your being that you've achieved or gone about trying to become. And this demon is your own reflection, is yourself. You will examine yourself. And so the character that you've developed in lifetime is the frequency or the vibrational movement towards source itself. Where are you on this passage? The demon finds that the person accomplished all his deeds. He came into the world. If the demon observes and becomes angry at a person who spent his life doing evil deeds, it grabs him, throws him back down. Suspended between heaven and earth, will be no hope for such a soul, and is in great pain. This is talking about purgatory, of course. But this is not necessarily the case. And when I finish the Nag Hammadi, we'll go into this much deeper. But this is effectively talking about a return into incarnated life, or be moving back into the vibrational frequency you are, depending on what you become. So someone who's done evil deeds, who has pursued darkness and wrapped themselves in darkness, greed, power, and every aspect of it. We all know what these things are. That person will effectively reincarnate into the same frequency, around the same frequency beings that were had before, to challenge oneself to elevate beyond it. You and I will come into incarnated life if we still have some more growth, if you like, to achieve from a spiritual self, if we haven't manifested ourselves closer to grace in this lifetime we'll probably return to another to complete a closer passage towards source. We don't have to complete all of it. It's enough to not need material physical existence or be bound to it in some ways. And that's what this is talking about. I think this great demon is actually our own. There isn't one that grabs you and looks at you, although I will say there are possibilities out there that there are beings that attempt to do such things. But you won't experience it unless a person's spiritual sense context is very lost and completely in fear and in hate and of darkness. If it is, those aspects that are out there, the possibilities that do exist, you could be drawn into those as an illusionary heaven, and then potentially recycle this. There are those who research this, and I'll tell you about that some other time. Okay, the wicked will be punished. That soul does not have a place on earth or in heaven, so it's talking about the purgatory place. In the open air of the universe, so it's purgatory just out there, bodies are tormented in various ways. Sometimes they are cast into raging water. They are thrown down into fire in order that the fire may destroy them. We must believe these things and fear them so that they may not happen to us. Unbelievers are impious. Later they will be made to believe. They will experience the reality of these things. First of all those who are earthly are subject to death. Yes, the soul that are full of much that is evil will not come and go into the air. That means into spirit. And they will be situated in the places of demons, full of pain, of blood and slaughter. This has aspects of truth in it. As I mentioned before, I don't want to go too much into it today, but your frequency, your vibration, your core beliefs, those that are bedded into you with that immovable belief systems, will present you with what could be an illusion in the afterlife. Those who are much full of evil and darkness, like I say, can see other doorways that will cascade them back into this, and some of them actually want it willingly. So this is what this is describing. There are many illusions. This is an illusion we live in now, but we can create another illusion after our spirit leaves the body, depending on the aspects of our vibration and frequency and fear that we hold, blindness that we have, ego that we have, and other aspects. So there's some truth in this, but it's not exactly as you read it. Who are the demons? Some are called stranglers. They roll souls downhill, throw them into the water, into the fire, bring about the pains and afflictions. Those who are like this are not from a divine soul, nor from rational human soul, from terrible evil. Okay. Oh, that's the last passage. I was a bit quicker than I thought. Sorry about the sniffing there, because I've got a lot of allergies today. And again, the second coming, as we've discussed before, I'll put it back on the webcam there, you've seen that before, is actually you. If you read anything into this text, it is basically telling you the same thing, although it does talk about the Egyptian times and the invaders, the fact that ancient Egypt, which was worshipping idols or aspects of the one as they saw it, was then being destroyed. And then talks about the passages through the universe, which is what they call the demons that capture you, the passages through the universe, and some people call this the tunnel. You pass through vibrational levels. Well, everything goes back to spirit. Everything. But we can allow ourselves to be diverted to all aspects of possibility within the realm of experience, if we're not wise, if we're not aware, if we not have knowledge, if we not have wisdom. if we have dismissed everything outside of ourselves and just love ourselves, our science, our technology, our gods, our minds, our bodies, then this will drive us to perceiving those things as well. So there's something in my eye there. Not having a great day today. And again, Mahanji says, become what you seek. Let's talk about that again. Here we go. So become what you seek, and not just practice virtual self-righteous practices. Again, thank you for listening. I do appreciate all of your time. I do want to say thank you to everyone for listening to this. I will do some more this weekend. I'm planning to do another 3 if possible. Another one today. Try to get as much of the book as possible in the next 3 weeks. And from the December the 10th, I'll be taking some time off for Christmas to go see my loved ones in the UK. I'll be travelling over there, so I will try to get as much done as possible. But I hope you enjoyed this. Again, apologies for the allergies that I'm feeling today, and I hope you have a great weekend, and I hope this is still helping you all. And I want to say thank you to everyone, and God bless.